2 years ago, I said, you know what would be nice? If we had a direct train from Union Station to O'Hare in Chicago. This summer, it actually happened. Many of you may know that I used to live in Chicago for a little bit. Living there and getting ever more familiar with the public transportation, I began to think there has to be a better way to get to the airport. The larger of the city's two airports, O'Hare, lies to the northwest of the city center. It is accessible by the CTA Blue Line, which terminates at an underground station underneath the airport. There's nothing wrong with the Blue Line per se, it actually has some great people operating the trains, but it's not fast or really set up to serve an airport. All the trains exclusively operate as local trains, and there are quite a few stops along the way. There is little room for baggage, and visitors may find themselves competing for space with the throngs of commuters. The Blue Line is expected to just be both local transit and an airport connection, and that's just not ideal. Turns out there is another way to get from the Loop to O'Hare, the Metra North Central Service. Metra is Chicago's commuter rail operator, running 11 lines that fan out from downtown into the vast collection of suburbs that make up Chicagoland. The Metra North Central Service, which opened in 1996, has a stop at O'Hare. So 2 years ago, I went out and I made a video riding the North Central Service to O'Hare. Then I worked out a plan for how to improve Metra train service to O'Hare. This plan included dedicated trains and branding, a frequent schedule, and an improved station at the airport, much like many of the popular airport trains around the world. There would be a few hurdles, I acknowledged, like the fact that the last few miles of track are owned by a freight company, but with proper regional leadership and funding, this could be a very easy way to establish a successful new connection. Well, as always, the skeptics and the naysayers rushed to the comments. Feedback ranged from, great idea, but it'll never happen, to, that's a bad idea, we don't need this. But guess what?
He is expected to bring about 50,000 people to the United Center and McCormick Place next month, and that of course means a lot more visitors will be coming through O'Hare. But Metra wants to remind people its trains are an option too.
On the North Central Service line, Metra will run daytime trains every hour, not just during rush hours. This will begin before the DNC takes to Chicago August 19th. But the CEO says negotiations are complete with freight partners.
We're going to do it for 10 days. That's all they're giving us. They're giving us a window of 10 days, and we're going to try to market the heck out of this to try to see if people really would look to use that service.
That's right. Metra launched a temporary O'Hare Express service from Union Station to O'Hare. This train ran from August 12th to August 30th of 2024, running every hour on weekdays and weekends. Chicago recently hosted the Democratic National Convention, and so this extra service was introduced to provide an additional way for guests to reach the city. Now let me make one thing very clear. I am not implying that Metra watched my video and copied my idea, not at all. I mean, if they did, I'd like to see some of that Illinois state money on my bank account, you know what I'm saying? In fact, in that old video, I actually bring up that other people have made similar proposals, and I discuss some of them. What I am saying though is that this idea, my idea, whatever you want to call it, it makes sense. So much sense that Metra actually did it. And so much sense that we should try to find a way to make it permanent. So what we're going to do in the rest of this video is first ride the O'Hare Express, and then we'll look at what Metra has to say about this train in the future. So this journey starts at Chicago's Union Station. My brother Bear is filming today. I just want to thank him for filming so much great content the last few weeks. For this trip, the entrances on Canal Street were closed, so Bear had to walk around to the Clinton Street entrance, which is kind of funny since that entrance only just reopened after being sealed shut for over 40 years. But this is the beautiful main hall of Chicago's Union Station. What a way to start your journey, and what a way to be greeted when you arrive in the Windy City. The main hall opened in 1925. The O'Hare Express trains are scheduled as part of Metra's North Central Service, a commuter line that runs to the far northern suburbs. It's a little hard to see, but they're indicated with a dark purple text on this departure screen. We can see a 4:25 departure, which is just a regular North Central service to Antioch, And then at 4:49, there's the O'Hare Express to O'Hare Transfer. These trains leave from the North Concourse, which is also where you'll find Metra ticket machines. And here's the kicker. A day pass between Union Station and O'Hare costs $7.50. A one-way costs half of that, at $3.75. So if you took the CTA Blue Line to O'Hare, it would be cheaper, since that costs $2.50. But from O'Hare, the Blue Line charges an airport surcharge, making your ride $5. But Metra is $3.75 either way, and that's when taking this Metra train would become a better deal. Now let's head to the train. Our train to O'Hare is diesel-hauled, with a recently refurbished SD70 Mac locomotive up front. The passenger cars are these really old gallery cars that are the standard on the entire Metra network. The gallery cars are not independently accessible, as you do need to climb up this flight of steps to board. Passengers with accessibility needs should contact Metra staff for boarding assistance. That is an area where the CTA Blue Line has an advantage, at least at some stations. Once inside the gallery cars, we can get a feel for their unique layout. There's a full bottom floor with seats that have a reversible back so you can face whichever direction you like. Upstairs are 2 balconies with limited seating. In between are luggage racks. I personally would much rather bring luggage onto one of these trains than onto the Blue Line. It certainly is impressive to see a schedule with so many trains on the North Central service. Traditionally, the North Central service has seen some of the lowest service levels on the entire network, pretty much just peak direction service on weekdays. Of course, that still remains the case for service north of O'Hare. We first travel west, over tracks owned by Metra themselves. Owning their own tracks is a great advantage for passenger railroad in the United States, where most of the time passenger trains run on freight-owned tracks and have to depend fully on the cooperation and goodwill of these freight companies. Nevertheless, these tracks still are dispatched by a freight company, CPKC. And then we reach our first stop. This is Western Avenue, one of 7 different stations in the city to have that name. Transfers available here to the Milwaukee District North and West lines. We will continue to share tracks with the Milwaukee District West until our next stop. The only other intermediate stop is River Grove, the last transfer station to the Milwaukee District West. From this point on, we have switched off of the Metra-owned tracks and onto tracks owned by freight railroad Canadian National. In total, the journey time between Union Station and O'Hare Transfer is 34 minutes, helped in part by the fact that we skip all intermediate stations between River Grove and O'Hare Transfer. The train drops passengers off from the middle track, and since the platform is to the right, folks need to wait until the train has left to cross the tracks. So this is O'Hare Transfer Station. It's very basic, I will admit that right away. Just 2 platforms completely exposed to the elements. One of my biggest suggestions in my video was that a structure should be built here to make it a more pleasant place to wait. There have been a few small upgrades since the last time I was here, however. New signs, and these digital displays were definitely not here before. Same goes for the ticket vending machines. You can really tell that we're dealing with Metra here because these extremely basic, normal things feel like a big deal. In between the special O'Hare trains, the regular North Central service trains continue to run, like this express train to Antioch, which is bypassing O'Hare Transfer. Now let's get to the airport. About a 2-minute walk from the platforms, you'll find the O'Hare Multimodal Facility. Besides hosting rental cars and a parking garage, as well as bus stops for regional buses, this facility is a station on the O'Hare Airport Transit System. This little automated shuttle drops you off right in front of the check-in at every terminal. It's one of the reasons why I think this Metra connection has so much potential. Sure, the CTA Blue Line technically stops closer to the airport, but the terminals are still a significant walk away from the station, and for those headed to Terminal 5, you have to take the shuttle anyway. In my experience, the difference in walking isn't that much between Metra or the Blue Line. If there were a covered walkway between the train and the shuttle, I think it would be a fully acceptable airport connection. So if you're watching this video on the day it came out, there's only 2 days left of this service. After Friday the 30th, the North Central service will go back to its very bare-bones schedule. But could there be a more permanent future for the O'Hare Express? Well, getting this train to run took a lot of effort. It required funding, of course, but also the full cooperation of the freight company who owns the line. But on Metra's website, we can find this article titled, "Can O'Hare Service Be Improved?" Here's what Metra thinks. First, obviously, they need agreements with the freight railroads. A more frequent schedule also requires construction, like building flyovers in the most congested parts of the network. But look at this. They say, "We may also want dedicated rolling stock for O'Hare service that is more compatible with quick trips back and forth to the airport than our existing equipment. A dedicated fleet of multiple units running between Union Station and O'Hare, stopping at Western Avenue. These trains would have plenty of luggage space on board." And then there's this. Metra received a $750,000 federal grant with the support of U.S. Rep. Mike Quigley to investigate and outline steps to make the O'Hare transfer station a more comfortable and useful station, and a better alternative for getting to and from the airport. Chicago also received federal funding to improve the pedestrian connection from the Metra station to the airport transit system. What needs to improve is the connection between Metra and the ATS. Build an annex to the multimodal facility and have the O'Hare Express trains terminate at tracks underneath the new roof. So what started for me as just an exercise in thinking about how to improve connectivity in my city has now become reality, at least temporarily. And I'm beyond thrilled to see that the agency is seriously studying making this a permanent feature of the Chicago transit scene in the future. Once again, I'm not taking credit for anything. I'm just saying, if you have a good idea, don't be afraid to share it. Thanks for watching today. What's the best airport transit connection in your opinion? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome, and we'll see you next time.